Divine and royal greetings, family, our IG family, our Facebook and YouTube family. Welcome back to another Friday. Let's see, another Friday with the Heal Thyself Practitioner Tribe. So we're going to come to you on Fridays at 12:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to share a thing with you. Hi, boss lady Shanita. We have a few people coming in on the Instagram page, and we say thank you. If we missed your name, we say thank you. So today's topic is going to be about breastfeeding. It's so many inquiries about breastfeeding and detoxing, and you know how that looks. Of course, there's this shortage of, and I say it in quotes, shortage of formula. So that's pretty amazing, right? Because we already have what we need naturally. And, you know, who needs formula? So I'm going to open us up with a passage from Queen Afua's City of Wellness book as it relates to breastfeeding. I'm going to read from page 303 and 304. So just stick with me a little bit here. The Path to Purification by Baba Kwame Zingi. I hope I'm saying that right. All right. Nature, the profound teacher of the universe, gives us proper path at the conception of our lives. So we already have what we need at the before the inception of our lives. As adults, we must return to the path of purification to try to recapture what nature gave us at birth. So again, we already come fully equipped. He goes on to, Queen goes on to say, the path of purification is initiated in our lives when we are first conceived in our mother's womb. Once we are born and one beholds the whole child in one's arms, it is remarkable to see that a small child has the ability to eliminate through bowel movements and through urination. Observe the breathing patterns of a small child. What is commonly thought as pranayama or yogic breathing is how the small baby is breathing through nature's will. The baby seeks the breast of the mother, and if the child is fed a natural is fed the natural milk of the mother for 1 or 2 years, the child will have natural immunization against diseases. So if mama is breastfeeding straight off the top, you know, she's already providing baby with what is needed to fight off disease. In addition, breastfeeding will help the mother's womb return to its natural position, and the child's facial tissues and jawbone will develop and be extremely strong because of nature's proper system of living for all natural beings. When the mother and child are able to continue this natural lifestyle ordained by the very universe itself, the mother will be extremely healthy as long as she eats well. The child will be a remarkable person mentally, physically, and spiritually, aside from obvious benefits such as bonding between mother and child. Here's the making of a super person. So I'll pause there. So just knowing that we really already have what we need, it's like, who really needs formula? So I learned, or I heard, well, I guess it's learning too, that what happens oftentimes is, or back in the day, if you breastfed, that meant that you were a part of like a low socioeconomic background. So it was kind of frowned upon for people to for women to breastfeed. Like, oh, you can't afford formula, so you know you can't hang with us type thing. But now we know it really is what baby needs. I recognize that, you know, some babies may not latch. I personally had a breast reduction And I remember I wasn't really in a space of having children, but had I known what I know now, I probably would not have had the breast reduction, because it is a total separation between your breast and your uterus. So that's a relationship that I had to and have to continue to foster. So what say you? How are y'all feeling? Latoya, since you were on hi, holistic practitioner Farasha, you are mom of a toddler and you are also a raw vegan chef, right? So how was your experience? What did you know, experience as a
Yes.
mom bringing
Yes.
this planet?
Yes. I always, it was my intention to definitely breastfeed when I had my daughter. Um, it actually went better than I thought, even with the circumstances that happened at the beginning, because it's very critical the first few days that you um, are breastfeeding. You know, that can really impact the latter afterwards. So
Mm-hmm.
with me, I had my intention to have a home birth, and I had an emergency C-section. And what ended up happening was that my daughter ended up in NICU due to jaundice. And so she was healthy, she was full term and everything like that, but because of the high bilirubin levels, because my blood type was conflicting with hers, it was like a blood incompatibility. So my blood was seeing her blood as something foreign and breaking things down. So that's why her levels were higher. You know, my blood type, it was, and her blood type was the reason why, and she has her father's blood type. So that's the reason, and I have O positive blood. So with that being said, it was like a very unexpected experience for me. And but despite that, my midwife was awesome. She really supported me and just keep going, even though she was in NICU, and I did latch and I breastfed her. She was in NICU for like 9 days because of the jaundice. But I went by the clock. The nurses were in awe. They were like, you're doing amazing. And they even offered, one of the nurses made sure that I was able to get a room in the hospital so that I can be closer to her and didn't have to go home. But despite all of that happened, I breastfed for 27 months. And so it definitely is cost effective. My daughter she doesn't have any allergies that I know of, you know. I was very mindful of that, and my midwife was amazing and making sure that I was mindful of what foods to introduce to her first to avoid, you know, early allergies or whatnot. But it was definitely challenging in the beginning adjusting, but I had a lactation consultant that definitely supported me, and through time it became much easier. Sleep was definitely a challenge for me. And I never really learned how to sleep with her breastfeeding. I just couldn't do it. For some reason, I just end up having to wake up with her. But I know a lot of people sleep and allow the baby to, you know, nurse. But yes, it was. I don't regret it at all. So I advocate for it. Definitely, I see the benefits of it for her having breast milk until she was, you know, 27 months. You know, and I never had that experience in my family. I didn't see it or anything. So it was different, you know, very different for everybody. But I don't regret it and encourage everyone to do it, you know, because there was roadblocks for me, but I overcame it. I could have easily gave up, and I could have given in to the hospital and try to give her formula so that her bilirubin levels could get in. You know, I could have did all of that, but I had to really advocate for myself in the hospital, you know, especially when I was literally supposed to have a home birth. So I was able to see both aspects of it, how different. And despite all of that, I was still, if I decide to have another child, I would still attempt to do home birth and then do a vaginal birth. So yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. I love the fact that you said that you really didn't grow up seeing that, right? So it's something innate in us that knows I'm just gonna do this different. Just this feels better than being in a hospital feet up in the air. You know, they say gravity pull, like just the whole experience of the child coming into the world
Mhm.
in these modern times can be traumatic in it of itself. Um, my mother had me at home, and she read the encyclopedia to learn how to deliver me. Right, so
Wow.
that was something. But here I am living my best life. All right. So we have two more mamas on the line with us. And we should say, IG family, if you would like to continue the conversation with us, because we will continue on YouTube, you can visit us at the Emerald Scarab, and you can see everyone that's a part of the conversation. But Shantae, Lorraine, did any one of you breastfeed?
Oh, I absolutely did. I breastfed both of my children. I was very intentional about wanting to do that for sure. I remember when I was pregnant and I was reading all of the books on, like, becoming a parent and motherhood, and breastfeeding was one of the hot topics. And I remember learning that it wasn't something that, like, came natural, or at least that was what they were teaching in these books. And I was so, like, flabbergasted, because I'm like, this is what we're supposed to do, right? We're supposed to
Mm,
breastfeed. And so I didn't know that there was a whole science behind it, the profession of lactation specialists that come with it, the whole notion of, like, oh no, the baby has to latch on correctly. And so I had started to have all of this, like, fear and anxiety behind it before the baby even got here, like with my
mm,
son, because I was like, what if I'm not doing it right? What if he doesn't know how to latch on? All of the things. But we were actually very blessed, because I remember when we were in the hospital when I had him, and I also had an emergency C-section with my son as well. But
wow.
and so we had the lactation specialists who came in, and so at the time they were actually starting to promote breastfeeding in mothers, especially at the hospital that I delivered. And so they were like, oh no, you guys are both naturals. He latched on very easily. I was not, as tense and nervous as I thought I was going to be. And so we had a great experience. I probably breastfed him for like 3 years as well. So we went for the long haul. Um,
Mm.
I think the reason I actually stopped was because one day I got a cold hard look at my titties, and I was like, these little saggers. I was like, you're done. You're done.
Not little saggers.
Yes, I was like, he has sucked the life out of these things. You have got to go. So there was no weaning or anything. I was just like, oh, it ends here, sir. You're going to have
Right.
to work it out. And so with my daughter, I had a different experience. So I'm going in, with confidence, because I'm like, oh yeah, I've been here, done this. Like, we're good. And so
Mhm.
she had, like, the most ferocious latch on. And so
Wow.
I was seeing lactation specialists left and right, because she was like injuring my areola, like had like sucked it off to the white meat. I mean, it was
Ooh,
like
what a
bad.
visual.
Yes, it was bad. And I was like, one of them was like out of commission for a while. I was just like,
Oh.
okay, this is the only thing we're working with. And so I tried to pump for a second, because I was like, yeah, you can't. And so the lactation specialist kept telling me, like, no, she's doing everything right. She's good. And I'm like, no, because I did this before, and this is not
This
my
wasn't what it was.
experience. This was
Yeah.
not. And they were like, yeah, she just has a stronger jaw, it'll take her. So it took her some time, I guess, to get used to the boob and to, like, lighten
Yeah.
up some. And so with her, I breastfed her less time. I think we only did like a year and like maybe a quarter. And
Mm.
that's just because she was very interested in food, like, very early, whereas my
Right.
son definitely wasn't. But yeah, I don't regret it. I do remember going through things like, because I would breastfeed anywhere. I was one of those people. I'm like, my baby's hungry, I'm whipping my titty out, and I'm like, not trying to be all hot up underneath these nursing blankets and stuff. I'd be looking, I'm like, he's sweating under there. Like, y'all gonna have to just see this. Like, I am
Right.
doing
And
something
adjust,
very
right?
natural, right? Exactly. Like, you're gonna have to leave me alone. My baby is eating. And I just remember going through, like, I remember once I was in a restaurant. I think I stopped going to that restaurant altogether, because they were like, no, you can't do that in here. I'm like, everybody else is eating. Like, why can't my baby eat? Like, I'm very confused by this. But
Mhm.
And even from other family members and stuff that I knew, it was like, why are you just always just whipping your titties out like that? And I'm like, that's
Oh,
not
oh.
what I'm doing. Like, I'm feeding my son, my child. And so I still hate that there's so much of that, like, negativity, that negative connotation that is like around breastfeeding and mothers like exposing themselves in that way when it's really like just a natural thing. But yeah, I definitely advocate for it for sure.
We advocate for it too. And we say thank you so much, everyone that has come in. Ka Grant has come in again. We appreciate your support. We're going to break here and invite everyone to come over on the Emerald Scarab so that we can continue the conversation. And just know that if you are looking to go through the 21-day detox with us, and you are breastfeeding, you can certainly still use the formulas. There is, you have to moderate. You can't take everything, but you certainly can. We also do have, I know people on Instagram can't see it, but we do have a packet that is specific to how to safely detox as you are breastfeeding or even if you are pregnant. So, again, we welcome all breastfeeding moms and dads who are supporting breastfeeding moms. We welcome those who are striving for pregnancy or already in their trimesters of pregnancy. Again, you can still safely detox. However, there are some modifications that will need to take place. And of course, we will help you with that. So to continue on, we'll probably go for another 15, 20 minutes. Feel free to come over to the Emerald Scarab on YouTube. Until next week, IG Live, we say peace, light, and love.
Peace.
All right. So continuing on, Shantae, how did you do? Did you breastfeed?
Man, so first and foremost, I want to say that we are 3 for 3 for emergency C-sections, and that's probably a live that we can dive into at a later time. My emergency C-section was due to my son being on his umbilical cord. So as the contractions were pushing him into the birth canal, his umbilical cord was right behind his head. So every contraction was cutting off the blood supply, so his heart rate would drop. So they were monitoring his vitals, and they saw that his heart rate was dropping and advised for an emergency C-section. Breastfeeding was definitely critical for bonding. I found that because I did not have the birthing experience that I thought that I was going to have, I felt so disconnected from motherhood. Like I felt like because I did not push him into the world and he was cut out, that somehow that diminished my status as a mother. So working through that was a challenge in and of itself, but breastfeeding really helped because it solidified the bond between us and allowed me to provide nourishment to him. I was not in this lifestyle 11 years ago when he was, an infant nursing. And had I known what I know now then, there would have been a lot of things done differently. One of the best things about the breastfeeding experience was just enjoying that connection. It truly was an experience. So, we all wax poetic. Oh, it was so beautiful and brilliant. And it was. But we nursed for a year. And the reason that our nursing experience cut off at a year is because his father felt that it was inappropriate for him to still be nursing at that stage, because we do still have to deal with the sexualization of the breasts and how other people feel about it. And that brought about the end of our breastfeeding experience. But it wasn't a negative for him. He just was like, oh, well, I can't nurse anymore. I'm going to go play. So that was his whole thing. He will go and play and find something to do at any given moment. He became a little social butterfly. He's out talking to people and all of that kind of stuff. And I noticed that when he was still nursing, he liked to stay close by. But it was literally as soon as the nursing stopped, his social side just lit up, and he was just out there. Anytime that we would go somewhere, he wasn't right up under me. He wanted to go and explore. He wanted to talk to people in his toddler language and make friends
Mhm.
and things. So it was definitely there was a lot going on. We had an episode of thrush, which is a yeast infection of the mouth and the nipples. And if I had known then what I know now, I would have been able to resolve that without using the antibiotic ointment and whatnot.
Mhm.
We had an issue with a faulty breast pump. And I was using this breast pump, and it pulled my nipples so hard that I couldn't nurse from that side. Like, I tried to nurse from that side, but it was so painful that I couldn't nurse from that side. So I had to try to hand express milk from that side because of the breast pump. Then I
Mhm.
looked up reviews on the pump, and there were other women that had the same experience that I had. So I was
Wow.
like, I'm not going to use that anymore. So just a tidbit: if you don't feel like you can afford a good breast pump, check with your insurance company, check with the WIC office, check around, because they'll give you a Medela or a Lancino breast pump, and those are like the top of the line. And if you gift somebody a breast pump, please don't just give them the cheapest breast pump that you can find, because that is not helpful. Okay, that was
It'll
a
end up
terrible.
being really expensive.
Ooh, it was.
Yeah.
Um, but just going through all of those learning curves, I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about just parenting and those aspects of womanhood that we don't really address in open circles. Um,
Mm.
it was really an experience, but it's one that I definitely, if I do have more children in the future, I will absolutely be breastfeeding, and I will be taking my green life every single day
Mhm.
to support healthy lactation and make sure that all the nutrients that are needed are there, because it's different when you're nursing healthy versus nursing unhealthy. And I didn't
Mm.
realize that I was nursing unhealthy until I came into this space of learning with you all. And it's definitely been a worthwhile journey.
Well, I'm here for the worthwhile journey. So I just wanted to veggie back a bit. Thank you for sharing. These formulas, especially the green life, is okay. It's baby friendly. So whether you are looking to become pregnant, if you're breastfeeding, you definitely can have the green life. Which you probably wouldn't take in, which you wouldn't take in, not probably, would be the master herbal. You could do the master herbal as a sitz bath or maybe a yoni steam, but not necessarily orally, of course, because that will go to the breast. Too harsh for the baby. You can do the you could do the breath of life. I see a fly. I don't. It's just like it knows that I'm live. It's like she won't do anything to me because she's live. Like I'm here. Why are you here? But anyway, you could do the breath of life in moderation. You wouldn't necessarily do the laxative pills or the colon ease. That might have a residual. You can do the colonies, but you would have to do that in complete moderation. So the formulas that really are super friendly are going to be the Green Life Master Herbal and the clay. You know, if you're having some sort of dis-ease. But let me read this real quick. It's only a little bit more, but I love this book. So for anyone out there who is looking to change their lifestyle, you need remedies, you need recipes. This is definitely a great read. On the other hand, we see the disastrous results of the reverse procedure of the so-called modern mother. Baby bottles and formulas put the baby alone in his or her room and feed them modern foods such as cow's milk. Often before the child reaches the age of 6 months, he or she is in and out of the emergency room, constipated, feverish, and lazy from being extremely overweight. A host of other opportunistic, tragic things can occur. The mother who does not breastfeed is in a similar state. She may experience a prolapsed womb. With dried milk in her breast, she is in unintentionally challenged her immune system. Many modern women have not had the experience of breastfeeding, are unaware of the special bond that this union can create. Some fail to bond with their child or not uh, understand the child's habits from this unique perspective. Ironically, the stresses of modern life can also make it impossible for even the most well intentioned mother to manage breastfeeding. Often, the intimate bond created during breastfeeding creates a lifelong positive connection. It is the connection that lasts even when the child does not sleep in the same bed with the mother. Children who develop a natural bond with their mothers have less of a need to exhibit unnatural actions designed to get the mother's attention. Nature, the profound teacher of the universe, gave us the proper path at the conception of our lives. If our families had followed if our families had followed the first path, we would be a super people. It is obvious that it is obvious what kind of shape we are in as a result of our waywardness. As adults, we must return to the path of purification to try to recapture what nature gave us at birth. We must enter the city of wellness. So I can see that now. This book was written in, I think, 2008. And we know that, everybody working and hustling, bustling. Like, when do I have time to even pump? 6 weeks. You get 6 weeks to bond with your child. So for me, again, I definitely lost a pregnancy. I had an ectopic a few years back. Again, had I known how having that breast reduction did affect my uterus, I would have had a whole different, situation. But I felt like, the double D's was just too much for my 5'2" frame. But it was like, that's what the Most High gave you. Who told you to alter? Who told you to do that? Here we are. So, I'm grateful to even have this conversation to say, you know what, breastfeeding is thebomb.com most days. I mean, speaking from a person who has never done it, but I much rather the breast than the formula. My family, I remember carnation milk, formula, cow's milk. We did it all. We did it, especially carnation milk. I don't know how old I was when I started drinking that, but just realizing as a teenager and as an adult, how all of that really caught up with me years later, not knowing that it was because I was drinking a naturalness from a very early age.
Absolutely. And I just want to veggie back on what you said about the bonding and the busyness. The bonding is critical, and it is so important to protect that bond. It is not something that you can just set it and forget it. Once you've created it, that's a relationship as well that you have to nurture. Like you have to be intentional about that relationship, just like you are about, a marriage relationship. For me, one of the most important things that I've learned since my son's father and I parted ways, and then later on he transitioned to be an ancestor, is that whatever entities that you allow into your life have to be those that can foster that type of nurturing bond. You can allow people into your space who are not going to respect the bond of mother and child. You can't allow people into your space who don't have a positive mother child bond with their own mothers, because in doing so, they're going to inject their toxicity and poison into the relationship that you have with your child. And that can cause a lot of issues in the parent child bond. And the recovery from that is one that is arduous, and it takes a lot of concentrated energy and effort. So, just for anyone who has breastfed their child and they are now in a stage of, well, we used to breastfeed and, we have this bond that you all keep talking about, but it's not like it was before. It can be the way that it was before. And that's actually part of the journey that I have been on personally, is rebuilding that bond that was broken by allowing, unhealed masculine energy into our lives after his father and I ended our relationship.
I love that.
Oh, it's so necessary. The other point that I wanted to make about the being busy, when he wasn't a year old yet. He wasn't a year old yet. And I made the decision to go back to work. And I was working in retail at the time because I had my son fairly young. I was working in retail at the time, and I made a point of letting my manager know that I would need to take my breaks to pump. I was always very respectful of other people's time and what they needed to do. So I would, even though I needed to pump more regularly to regulate my supply, I only took my lunch break and my 15-minute breaks to pump. And my coworkers were not all very understanding across the board. There was a lot of blowback from men, particularly because I would use the break room to pump. And I'm only in there for, like 15 minutes at a time, and then I'm back on the register. They didn't want to take over the register. They didn't feel like it was right that I took over the break room. Somebody actually suggested to me that I go pump in the bathroom so that I wouldn't take the break room from everybody else for those 15 minutes that I was in there. It was a whole ordeal, but we made it through that transition as well, because I was determined that that's what I needed to do. I would carry, and like I mentioned before, my breast pump, I had one that I purchased myself after the issue with the first breast pump that I received as a gift. And then I had another one that I got from the wig office, and it had a cooler compartment in it. So that's the one that I would take to work with me, and I put the little cooler packets in it, and all the milk that I expressed would get put in there, and I would sit it in my locker so that nobody else would touch it. But it was definitely an experience. And depending on your life and how your life is structured, you can absolutely return to work, return to life while breastfeeding, but you do have to be extremely intentional. And you may even have to advocate and fight for yourself and fight for your right to do so, because it is a legally protected right in a lot of states. I'll have to go back and check, but it is a legally protected right in many states that your employer does have to provide you safe sanitary conditions to pump milk while you're at work.
It's so amazing. But what, like you said, once we take away that all the stigma, I think we will be in a better place and really fighting for, what's right. Like, I'm not going to not do what I have to do because you are uncomfortable.
Right.
So, Latoya, before we close out, do you have anything that you would like to add as it relates to breastfeeding, milk, period?
Oh, yes.
Tops?
Yes, I resonate with everything that has been said. It's like ashe. Yes, because yes, and it really does. The bonding aspect is so important. And I feel like it also, because I think that a lot we don't discuss enough, well, in general, just collectively, how it benefits the mother to be able to breastfeed, to how it supports us in our health, mentally and also physically. And I just recall just the experience. I'm now seeing the benefits even more now. And Lorraine, she left a message about how
Mhm.
she believes it helps boost confidence in children, and that
Mm.
her children are never clingy or cry when she started to leave them in school. And I'm now seeing how my daughter is like becoming a social butterfly. And it's just like, I'm like,
You
wow.
see
But
it
I know,
too.
yeah. And I see how she has they call it a secure attachment to me, or
Mhm.
I believe that's the term that they use. And I know it has a lot to do with that, not only the breastfeeding aspect of just having that close bond and just being a consistent, present caregiver in her life, and that's so important to the development. And
Mhm.
I just know, just reflecting back on, I believe his name is Eric Erikson, and he talks about the developmental stages, and he talks about how the trust versus mistrust, that is like a big one. And I know
Mm.
that was big for me. So I wanted to make sure that I was a very solid, secure foundation for my daughter. And I know that breastfeeding definitely facilitates that for sure. Like
Sure.
that bonding, and I know that it supported me through my mental health too.
Mhm.
Um, it just in many ways it supported me in remembering what my purpose is, even though I had a purpose before she existed. But it just reiterated it and just reminded me to get into my healing journey and get deep into it, and to connect with my inner child and all that stuff. So it goes really deep. But yes, I resonate with everything that has been said, and that it's important to advocate, and that we can pretty, I believe in almost all the states, we should, I believe we can breastfeed out in public. We can, you
Mhm.
know, and I know that that's still something that people have to get used to, but they're going to have to get used to it, because clearly there's a reason why there's a shortage. Is the universe is calling us to get back into ourselves and get back to nature
I
and
have no
whatnot. And
idea where I put my mallet.
yes, but I know that a lot of women state they tried it, and that it doesn't work for them. And I know it may be hard to hear, but there's a small percentage of people that really genuinely cannot breastfeed for
Mhm.
maybe a medical reason or something like that. But most of us, if the reason why if we're not breastfeeding or we had trouble, is because of the lack of proper support and education. That's the
Mhm.
biggest thing. So, and it's a commitment too. It's a commitment. And if you move your milk, you'll get your milk. That's just what it is. It's a commitment, and you have to keep that baby latched. And I know sometimes the latch may be difficult. My daughter's latch wasn't always the easiest, but she was learning how to breastfeed, and I was learning how to nurse her. So it's a learning
Mhm.
curve in that, but
Mhm.
we overcame it. So that's all I have to say.
That's pretty amazing. Pretty amazing. I can't wait my turn. As we're speaking, I feel like my breast is saying, you know what? We ready when you ready. We ready when you ready.
Yes, a Shayola pregnancy. I am definitely
Okay.
excited for it.
I'll need the whole community, y'all, because I think I probably would be so extra. I would be so extra. But thank y'all so much for joining in with us. We will come back next week, Friday at 12:30 with another topic. If there's something that you would like to hear us talk about, feel free to leave it in the comments, and we will be sure to put that on our roll call. So until next Friday, we say peace, love, and light, and the power to heal is within you, and you have the mighty power to heal yourself. As per our beloved Queen of Fool, we thank you for that affirmation. See y'all next week. Peace.
Bye, y'all.